This is The Great Outdoors with Jason White, exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, The Great Outdoors with Jason White.
Hello, friends. I'm Jason White. Welcome to The Great Outdoors. Got a pretty interesting show for you today. I'm going to dive into Senate Bill 67. Going to talk about some of the things that were in that package, and basically, I hate to say this, but all the positivity legislatively has come to what I thought was bipartisan has come to a screeching halt, and sadly, it looks like we're going to have to wait another legislative session to get Sunday hunting and some other pieces of the puzzles addressed. But before I dive into the nuances of all that, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors, the Mariana Outdoorsman Association, MarianaOutdoors.com. Again, MarianaOutdoors.com. You can join today, and you actually get the rest of 2024 for free, along with your 2025 membership. Again, MarianaOutdoors.com, or you can give us a call at 724-579-0924 with any questions. Additionally, Wild Acres Farm, Fishery and Regulated Hunting Grounds. If you're looking to do an upland bird hunt, if you're looking to book a weekend trout fishing trip, if you're looking to do a deer and or turkey hunt, we have you covered. Really exciting place with a lot of different amenities, fantastic amenities actually. Especially the lodge alone is well worth the stay. Excuse me. But we have a lot that you can do. No fence. Guides, semi-guided, whatever you're really looking to do. 10mileco.org, TENMILECO.org, or give me a call at 724-579-0924, and I'm happy to make the hunt of your lifetime or fishing trip of your lifetime not only a reality, but hopefully a positive outcome that you can get that wall hanger on the wall and memories and stories for a lifetime. And last but not least, please visit wild and wonderful Pennsylvania, beautiful Pennsylvania, and enjoy the great outdoors. That being said, I want to jump into upcoming events for the Mariana Outdoorsman Association. Friday, November the 15th, will be trout stocking number 3. We've done a warm water strain of rainbow trout, the first 2 stockings. So for those that might be interested to say, well, it's been a little warm or the water's been a little bit low. Yeah, it has. You're not wrong. You're absolutely correct. But there are warm water species of trout, and that's actually what we were able to put in the water to kind of get the wheels moving. Hopefully by November the 15th at 3 o'clock, hopefully we're going to have some nice rains that move through our area, because certainly this is by far the worst drought I have ever seen here. I know at our property, located at the junction of Fayette, Greene, and Washington counties, but fingers crossed and continue to do that rain dance, folks. Saturday, November 16th at 10 o'clock, there's going to be an open house and a tour. So if anybody's interested whatsoever, happy to have you. Going to be going around the properties, looking at our different amenities, answering any questions. So, if you want to see the 1,000-yard rifle range, you want to see the stream and fishery as a whole, have any questions about fishing, have any information or questions about the upland bird hunting, happy to answer that. Want to look at the pistol ranges, happy to do that too. So look forward to seeing everybody. Again, Saturday, November the 16th, 10 a.m., there will be an open house and a tour. Friday, December the 13th at 3 p.m., it'll be trout stocking number 4. Looking forward to that one because only 2 days later, on Sunday, December the 15th, it'll be the 2024 Winter Fly Fishing one-day trout tournament. Just a one-day event. Looking forward to it. And I want to mention that all of these events are listed on the Mariana Outdoorsman Association's Facebook. MarianaOutdoors.com also is the website. So again, Facebook, Mariana Outdoorsman Association. Website, MarianaOutdoors.com. And the last event, I just want to throw this out there as a placeholder. Friday, May 2nd through 12 p.m. on May the 4th. It'll be the second annual PA Trout Classic. So really excited about that. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to all these great events. And yeah, again, if you want to join the MOA, go to MarianaOutdoors.com. Again, MarianaOutdoors.com, and happy to have everybody there. So I got to dive in a little bit to what happened this year with this Senate Bill 67, which, I know for the general public, the Sunday hunting piece of the legislation was I would say, the centerpiece of what most people would know. But that being said, it's it fell through. Fell through at I would say the 12th hour, 10 minutes before it fell through at the 2-yard line. But it was, I know I've talked about it on a lot of episodes, combination of Sunday hunting, combination of trespass reform, combination of, crop damage reforms to give landowners more ability to dispose of carcasses of deer, to take them themselves to the different butcher shops as opposed to waiting on the game warden. Things even included criminal trespass reform when it comes to hunting and trapping. There was a piece of the legislation, though, that was a quagmire, and that piece of legislation involved dog retrieval. Until literally a couple days ago, did not know how or why this piece was added to the legislation, considering there already is components within the laws regarding the ability of a hunter or hunters to retrieve a dog from a piece of property. There were huge upheavals about this. Basically, the way that it was worded and discussed, in essence, how do I want to say this? The wording that was going to be added to this legislation was to, I would say, to strengthen the way that it's worded. But at the end of the day, clearly there are questions as to its constitutional legality. And I would say that had no place whatsoever to be part of this legislative package. I can't rationally understand nor grasp why somebody thought it was a good idea to put it in there. Because ultimately it was the I would call it probably one of 2 nuclear bombs that imploded the Titanic here, at least for this calendar year. And does the dog piece of the legislation need addressed on its own? Yes, on its own. Had no place to be involved here. It was nothing but a cancer from the start. A couple interest groups, I would say, planted that seed, and politically it got added. Should have never happened, had no place nor bearing. It was a gargantuan political misstep, in my opinion. I would hope that it's a lesson learned for people. I regret that it happened because, there were so many positive things in that legislative package, and to have that put in there had no place whatsoever. Now, that being said, I think there's a very, 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 very strong path forward that this legislative package as a whole will pass next year. I think that the dog piece of it, the dog retrieval piece, will be gone. I think that that'll get struck from basically existence as far as this legislation is concerned. I do know that there are legislators that want to tackle that particular issue on its own merits by itself. So kudos to whoever picks up that football and runs with it. But just the way that it's worded and the way that it's being handled is clearly currently an issue, and again had no place nor bearing to be involved in what had happened. That being said, there was one particular amendment that I personally loved from Representative Dave Maloney, and that involved the open fields doctrine. So I'm really interested to see moving into next calendar year. The open fields doctrine, for those who do not know, basically, as of today, a police officer, if they're going to come to your home and do, a search, they have to have a search warrant. If a game warden or a fish warden come to your home, they can just walk right in. They do not need a search warrant. So this is a critical piece of, search and seizure, and it has a lot of, there's been federal lawsuits about this. I think that monumentally, this is something that is a slam dunk to give people their constitutional rights to avoid search and seizure without a search warrant. So I'm really excited that that got brought up, because I think that that is a much needed thing. The Game Commission and Fish Commission has no business walking into your house or, taking or confiscating anything without a search warrant. So I'm really, really appreciative and thankful that he brought this up and that he offered it as an amendment. I know it did not go into the legislation. It is what it is. But, we'll see kind of where things go moving forward. Again, clearly there were missteps. Clearly there were things done and involved that could have been avoided, shouldn't have happened. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and things, things happen. Things happen. Hopefully everybody will learn from them. We all have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a mouth, and we need to do a lot more listening and looking before talking. And I think this has been a great learning experience to take in. And clearly, with this whole gambit, this package, the dog piece of the puzzle was monumentally the most controversial. And again, I do not agree in any capacity that it was ever incorporated. It had no place. It was something that had no bearing at all, but ultimately it did have bearing. A couple other things, and these were just like educational things that I come to find out that different organizations were not adequately approached with fact. One of the pieces of this legislation included agricultural representation on the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Now, I heard somebody from the Fish Commission when I was at a conference basically stood up in front of everybody comparing this idea to, oh, well, what if PETA was on one of these boards, blah, 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 blah. Like, we think this is a terrible idea. Well, I want everybody to understand, number one, this piece of legislation had zero to do with any organization or entity being represented. We live in a representative republic. So the concept and idea was that people deserve to have representation. And when agricultural zones and private property owners are the predominant areas as to where wildlife is managed, those people need to be guaranteed to have representation. This is just common fact. So yes, we would like to see somebody with a knowledge of the agricultural area and community to have some type of a background so they can have an intelligent conversation on the Pennsylvania Game Commission Board of Commissioners. It's not rocket science. It has no bearing as to any organization. Now, that being said, that seems like common sense to me. But the people that opened up their mouths and said this nonsense about PETA or whatever ridiculousness, I can assure you the Governor's Advisory Council is totally and utterly controlled by one organization. For those that do not know that, go ahead and look it up and see what you find. I was interviewed for the Pennsylvania Fish Commission, and everybody that interviewed me represents a particular trout group. You can go figure that out for yourselves. I think it's important that I'll get you there. I'll lead the horse to the water, but I can't force you to drink. But I would assure you that if you go and look up who's on the Governor's Advisory Council, you can figure out what trout group I'm talking about that controls, how things get to the governor and who gets recommended, etc. So when we talk about special interest groups, this is happening right now. This is happening today, that you have a special interest group basically with tentacles through the Governor's Advisory Council. It's not based upon merits. It's not based upon, diversified views and diversified business backgrounds. Literally, you have a specific trout group that has their tentacles through that entity. So I want to just lay that out there, because I find it a little offensive that somebody's going to sit there and compare the Farm Bureau's idea of thinking that everybody deserves adequate representation in a legislative package that has nothing to do with the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. It's simply acknowledging the fact that you, as a citizen of Pennsylvania, we live in a republic, and you deserve representation based upon that governmental structure. And this idea of these bureaucrats, or rather these political hacks being appointed that do not have the knowledge or intellect to represent you, it's a problem. And these people get on these boards and do not know what they're doing, do not have the knowledge, wherewithal, background, whatever wording you want to use. This was simply a mechanism to shed light on, you need knowledgeable people on these boards. And if we're going to stop the conflicts or the convoluted actions that happen right now with these different organizations and entities having their tentacles through it, we need to do it across the board, because I can assure everybody it's happening right now. And it has absolutely zero to do with the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau and a multitude of other organizations. But there are organizations that have their tentacles deep and locked in. And if we're going to acknowledge that type of stuff is a problem, then it needs addressed internally now. And I advocate that that happen. And I look forward to seeing where things go with that piece of the puzzle. But I think we should all want experienced, knowledgeable, educated people that have that personal experience or the background or whatever, their hands-on education, whether you're an agricultural person or you have those own experiences, that you're on these, somebody should be on these boards that has that knowledge. You don't just need somebody that made campaign donations or has some conflict as to how they got there. That's not benefiting us at all. So I want to make sure everybody knows and understands that piece of the puzzle. The other thing that was clearly misconstrued was the hunter list. So the concept was that there would be a new proposed vetting process that was completely voluntary. And the concept was that currently most, if not all, of the agricultural programs require that basically the landowners have to open up their property to everybody. So they can't, like a farmer can't say, oh, well, I only want 2 hunters on my property, or, oh, I only want 4 hunters on my property. When you get into these public access programs, basically your rights as a private property owner get flushed down a commode, and the floodgates open up. So anybody can come on your property. As long as they can legally own a hunting license, that has zero bearing on their character, their ethics and morals. Are they going to follow the rules and regulations? So on and so forth. The whole concept here was a lot of farmers have backed away, gotten out of those programs because of exactly what I'm saying. And a lot of farmers said, hey, like if I knew somebody, went through like a hunting program, or if they did a background check, or I want to know who's coming on my land before, just people just coming, in truckloads of people to come hunt. Well, this was meant to be completely voluntary. It was meant to be, it's something that I think that the Game Commission is actually still going to pursue. because ultimately it's geared at getting more farmers to then open up their land, because people are pulling out of the access programs because of because of these scenarios of anybody just being able to have full access. And it's not an insult towards anybody, but just because you have a hunting license doesn't make you a good person, number one, and number two, it doesn't make you a safe hunter. It doesn't make you have morals and ethics, and the list goes on and on. So ultimately, the goal here is to open up more land to give people more access and opportunities. But if you want to be able to do that, you have to go through. There's going to be some type of a I guess we'll just call it like a hunting class that will talk to, will teach. It'll kind of be like, I hate to call it like hunting 101, but it's going to be like an adult version of the hunter safety class, but it's going to be more geared at, hunting etiquette, utilizing somebody else's property, morals and ethics, extending, you go through a gate in a farmer's field. What do? You then close it. When you get to a property, you should leave and it should be in the same conditions. So like these are things that doesn't necessarily get taught in your hunter's ed classes. So these are things that it's very important, that people kind of that know and understand this, because say somebody goes and hunts at a dairy farm, and there's a bunch of gates, keeping the cattle separated in different fields, and Joe decides he's gonna drive his truck, through a gate, and he leaves the gate open. Next thing you know, now the farmer's dealing with cattle, getting out and maybe getting hit by a car or something, or going and damaging somebody else's property. So these are like little things that kind of get overlooked, but they have happened. They have happened. People littering on people's property, people shooting firearms and bullets zinging at neighbors' properties, or bullets hitting buildings. And, another thing is like people harvesting deer and then gutting the deer. And, I've heard stories about gutting it too close to a house, and the next thing you know, like the dogs are out, on the edge of the woods. And next thing you know, dogs are coming back covered in blood because, basically they didn't properly dispose of it in a adequate place. So there's different things that go into this access idea, but at the end of it, it's all about creating more opportunities for people. And listening to, the complaints, and listening to why have so many people pulled out of these programs. And ultimately, it's just because of bad experiences. So, the idea here was not to force anybody to do anything. It was to provide more opportunities for people. But if people want to have those opportunities, they're going to have to do a little bit of sweat equity in the regards of just making sure that they're a ethical hunter, making sure that they're that they're gonna understand. Like, again, you go through a gate, you close the gate. Not doing anything to damage people's property. Being extremely, I would say, morally straight as possible. If a farmer says, "Hey, I want to have." You come on my land, this is another piece of it. Hey, I have a lot of does. So before you are allowed to shoot a buck on my property, I want you to shoot 2 does, and then you can shoot a buck. Again, current public access program doesn't grant any of those opportunities. So I think there's a lot to it. There was a huge breakdown in communication, which is sad, and I'm going to do everything in my power to help resolve that moving into the next calendar year, because it doesn't need to happen. We need to do a better job communicating collectively, and I know we can do that. But, at the root of it, a couple of these things were not communicated as best they could have. And that just simply comes with relationships and conversations. The dog thing, again, in my opinion, had zero basis to be involved in anything. I cannot rationally grasp how it got involved. outside of somebody thought they were going to be slick and slide something in. And it is what it is. So, we'll kind of, as this progresses, I'm going to keep everybody updated, as I do the very best that I can to do that. I think that, how do I want to say this? I think this was a huge learning experience for a lot of people, because I think a lot of the agricultural issues, and I would even say wildlife issues, for a long time have been, how would I say this? Put on the back burner, kind of ignored, not primary focus. And sadly, every time there are elections, every time there are elections, it's there are huge consequences with, that, as they say, elections have consequences. But I think for me, it is imperative moving forward that we all hold our elected officials accountable, that we have open dialogue with our elected officials. It's disappointing to me knowing the amount of volunteer time over the past year to year and a half that I saw out of so many different groups and organizations, to see it kind of stonewalled at the end. And then the other piece of it, so like I've given you a lot of like the insider baseball as far as the legislative piece. Ultimately, the dog thing gets removed. Ultimately, everything else is just simply better communication as far as like just letting people know what things truly were. To me, the dog thing needs to go out, and I love Representative Maloney's idea about putting in the piece about the open fields doctrine. That is like, if that happens, in my opinion, that is such a monumental piece of legislation. The Sunday hunting alone is monumental because it would be the first time ever for Pennsylvania. But the open fields doctrine is such an important thing to get fixed. I think it's more important than Sunday hunting. I cannot stress this to you enough. Your private property rights are critical. So for us to get this controversial dog piece out and replace it with amendments to the open fields doctrine, I think that is, to say groundbreaking. It would be such a monumental piece of legislation. It would be truly the first of its kind in the history of Pennsylvania. So certainly I'll keep everybody posted as to how things go and how they progress forward. But again, very disappointed of the monumental efforts that were given to see it kind of get stonewalled. But despite all that, the true root of the stonewall, I don't believe lays in the legislation. I believe it lays in politics. And I think it's very important that people know and understand that piece of the puzzle too, because you deserve to know it. So Senator Dan Laughlin of Erie County is in a very highly contested race, Senate race. He's a Republican, and I can tell you I was at a Farm Bureau conference last year, and literally there was somebody on stage talking about politics and agriculture and blah, 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 and I will never forget it. That woman stated that he was like a high-valued target, him and another senator south of Pittsburgh, and they thought that those were seats that they could flip. Well, from all the people that I've talked to politically behind the scenes, the dog thing clearly was a problem, as I've said, and I wish it was never brought up, and I wish that it was never in any capacity involved in any conversations. But you take the dog thing out, you basically have a really good piece of legislation, a monumental piece of legislation. But that being said, it seems to me that at the root of all of this, politics played the linchpin It was truly the linchpin of everything. They were trying to do horse trading at the end. Basically, the House was telling the Senate that, oh, well, we'll pass your bill, but you got to give us 4 bills in return. That's a sad reality of how sportsmen and even the agricultural community can be used as political pawns. I think it's very critical that everybody knows and understands these types of things because basically we were told for the whole year that, oh, yeah, this is going to go through, this is going to happen. And basically that was all ultimately, in my opinion, that was a charade. That was a charade. I would question that anybody politically within leadership truly meant for these things to go through. I can't prove that. I can't disprove that at this point in time. I just know the people that I've spoken to, the conversations I've had, it seems like the overwhelming, I would say 90% of the reason it did not pass was because of politics, because of trying to basically, they didn't want to give Dan Laughlin a victory. Legislatively, I guess the Democrats feel that, if he gets a political victory or a legislative victory, that's enough of a tick that could influence his election. Personally, professionally, I think that is sad. I think that is disgusting. I think that is a fact that people need to know and understand as a voter, as somebody that may or may not be a sportsman, somebody that may or may not be in agriculture. Because I can assure you, I have zero intention of being a political prop or a political pawn for anybody. And I have other things to do with my time than waste it in, meetings and volunteering for things that somebody has false motives, I guess we'll say. So at the end of the day, it's all about, open conversations. It's about honesty. It's about identifying problems and implementing solutions. And if the political side of it is true, which seems to be true, I am very disappointed in our elected officials that blockaded this from the House Democrat caucus, because I think that this was something that, look, if the dog thing needed struck, then strike it. I agree with it. Strike it. Get rid of it. It had no place for there. Outside of that legislation was good to go. So to me, do the amendment, strike the dog thing, make the vote, send it back to the Senate, let them vote, let the governor sign the bill, and boom, everybody's happy. Things that are now benefiting sportsmen, things that are benefiting the agricultural community, things that are benefiting all landowners, property owners, etc. Trespass laws, trespass reform, and there were other things that were added to it too. I won't really dive into that, but there were just some little things. But yeah, it's this was a disappointing experience, although an extremely enlightening experience for me watching it, hearing what people had to say. But, I would say the two negatives of the whole situation that were the Achilles heels of the whole situation was, one, the piece about the dogs, which I cannot reiterate. We as Pennsylvania Farm Bureau had nothing to do with. I myself had nothing to do with. I had no understanding, and I cannot stress on my own political and personal beliefs that the dog thing needs totally removed and it needs addressed on its own merits by itself. And I firmly believe that. I think there were a lot of great amendments that were proposed that did not get added, and hopefully those can be, thoroughly incorporated moving into 2025. And I would say the last thing is and I think the worst piece of it is that politics played, I would say, the guillotine here. That was the hangman for this piece of legislation. So, it's sad to say, that politics. I thought that this was ultimately bipartisan. Again, the dog thing should be stricken and dealt with on its own by itself, away from this conversation. But that could have been done. That could have been removed. But that being said, I think it's very critical that people know and understand the politics of things, and hopefully, as you move forward, hold people accountable for it, because what happened here, I think, was wrong. Did people make missteps? Yes. Did I think that those missteps by certain groups and individuals were enough for it to not go through? I do not. Just like I'm back to the dog thing. The dog retrieval could have simply been stricken from the legislation and dealt with by itself at a later time. But it kind of got used as an excuse, and then we come to find out basically at the strike of midnight that there were so much political undertow, and basically certain people within I guess we'll say the Democrat caucus wanted to go after Laughlin and try to not give him any positive, movements prior to his election. So, these are just disappointing things I must share. I try to give everybody the inside baseball as kind of how things are moving forward and how things have happened. That being said, it's been a huge learning experience, even for myself, to watch all this, to hear people's views and opinions. I'm really looking forward to the folks in the Southwest Caucus going into 2025. I'm really, really hoping that, we can all get together and formulate some really great ideas and thoughts and plans, and understand where the landmines were in 2024, legislatively, politically, and figure out, I would say, thought out processes and procedures as to how we can work together to be successful, and not be. I would hope that a year from now, that when I'm having this conversation again, that it's talking about positivity and kind of sharing like what we did and who the partners were, and how we move this thing forward, and not only that, but also talking about what are the next goals. I know I've said this before. This legislation does not address Title 18, and it does not address Title 30 with criminal trespass. I know that permitting is a huge topic of conversation and discussion throughout the state, and it does not get addressed nearly enough as it needs to. I think people have been a little bit politically afraid to do that, but that is something that we need to put at the center stage. But we really need to get this put behind us. We need to kind of head in a positive regard, and I will certainly keep everybody updated and in tune with things as we kind of progress forward. But again, lots of positives came out of the situation based upon knowledge and things that we learned, relationships built, so on and so forth. I mean, obviously the negative is something about this dogs could have been removed very easily. The politics of it is total and utter nonsense and ridiculous, and it is what is the cesspool of politics. And I would hope that everybody here's what I'm saying, that listen, when you see a piece of legislation, it's important that you reach out to your state rep or your senator, that you establish relationships, send that email. Just remember, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It doesn't mean you need to holler or scream at anybody. We can all have civil conversations. There's nothing wrong with having different views and opinions on things. But just remember, stay involved in the process, because if you want positive change to happen, positive change comes from positive actions. But that being said, I want to circle back and thank our sponsors. the Mariana Outdoorsman Association. You can join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com. Again, it's our early bird special, so if you join right now, fall of 2024, you get the rest of this year for free, and then you get all of the 2025 calendar year. So really look forward to seeing everybody. Happy to have you. Again, we're going to be having a tour, and that tour, excuse me, I guess I closed my window here. That tour will be Saturday, November the 16th. So if you want to come check out any of our facilities, happy to have you. Trout stocking number 3, Friday, November 15th. Trout stocking number 4, Friday, December the 13th. Sunday, December 15th will be our winter fly fishing 1-day tournament. And then our big event next spring is the 2.5-day PA Trout Classic. Again, marianaoutdoors.com. And happy to have everybody. 10mileco.org if you're interested in a guided deer hunt, turkey hunt, upland bird hunt, or a weekend fishing trip. Again, 10mileco.org, 10mileco.org, or give me a call at 724-579-0924. For those not from Pennsylvania, please come and visit beautiful Pennsylvania and enjoy the great and wonderful great outdoors. For right now, I'm Jason White. This has been The Great Outdoors. I hope you all have a tremendous week. And just remember, I hope that we will all vote next week and all the commercials then. But have a great weekend, everybody, and talk to you all soon.